The text arrived at 6:47 a.m., just as I was signing off on in perfect synchronization. My Marines, part of the Expeditionary Force I'd commanded for 18 months. I set the phone face down with deliberate care, the kind of control you learn after 2 decades of service. Colonel Clarissa Ogden, United States Marine Corps. 43 years old, 21 years of service. 2 combat deployments, Iraq and Afghanistan. Currently commanding officer of Marine Expeditionary Unit 11. With over 2,000 personnel under my command. My family thinks I walk dogs for a living, and I've never corrected them. The lie started completely by accident. I just made lieutenant colonel, been assigned to the Pentagon. 16-hour days were normal. The work was classified. I was exhausted, running on coffee and discipline. When I came home for Christmas, my sister Tanya had just gotten engaged to Gregory, a pediatric surgeon. The house was full of wedding talk. My mother was in heaven. "So, what exactly do you do now?" my mother asked over dinner. I'd been reviewing satellite imagery of hostile territories 6 hours earlier. Now I was eating ham and answering questions I couldn't answer. I coordinate logistics and operational planning, mostly administrative work. A lot of meetings. My father, a successful real estate developer, frowned and should have told them about the classified briefings, the strategic planning, the weight of decisions affecting national security. But Tanya was glowing, showing off her ring, a flawless 2-carat diamond, and suddenly my vague answers seemed easier, less likely to steal focus from her moment. "You know how it is in DC? Lots of bureaucracy, lots of walking between buildings." They accepted that answer and moved on. 6 months later, at Tanya's bridal shower, my mother's friend asked what I did. "Clarissa takes walks," my mother said with an embarrassed smile. "Government work. Very active." Tanya jumped in, laughing. "Basically, she walks around Washington. It's this bureaucratic thing. Very glamorous." Her tone was affectionate, teasing, but there was something underneath it. Something sharp and hungry that I recognized from childhood. The edge of competition that had always existed between us. I let it slide. Then came my promotion to colonel 2 years ago. Less than 1% of Marines ever reached that rank. It came with command of an entire Marine Expeditionary Unit, one of the most prestigious assignments in the Corps. I was being considered for general officer positions. The commandant knew my name. I flew home for my father's birthday. Tanya was there with Gregory and their 6-month-old daughter Emma. The baby was beautiful. Tanya had lost the pregnancy weight within 3 months, a fact she mentioned twice during dinner. "Still with the government?" my father asked over birthday cake. "Yes, sir. I've had some advancement. More responsibility. That's good." He said it the way you'd compliment a child for finishing vegetables. Perfunctory, he looked at me. "Any chance of moving into something more substantial?" "Your sister's husband just made chief of pediatric surgery. That's a real achievement." I watched Tanya's face, watched the way she preened, the way her hand found Gregory's arm, and I saw something else, a flicker of satisfaction when my father dismissed my career. "I'm content where I am," I said quietly. "Well, as long as those walks keep you in shape," my mother offered. "You look fit." Tanya laughed. She's a professional dog walker at this point. "Might as well make it official." The table chuckled. Good-natured family ribbing. Except it wasn't good-natured for Tanya. I'd seen it in her eyes, the need to diminish me, to keep me small, to ensure she remained the successful one, the daughter our parents could brag about. I smiled and cut another piece of cake. Every family gathering, every holiday, Tanya would mention my walking career with that sharp-edged affection. My parents would shake their heads sympathetically, believing I'd squandered my potential. My extended family would offer advice about finding a real career. I never corrected them, partly because the truth was classified, partly because explaining seemed exhausting, but mostly because watching Tanya's desperate need to be superior had become fascinating in a detached sort of way. She'd always been competitive. When I went to the Naval Academy and she went to state school, She cried for 3 days, then declared she preferred a normal college experience anyway. When I was commissioned as a Marine officer, and she became a pharmaceutical sales rep, she made constant comments about how military life was so rigid and not for everyone. Then she married Gregory, wealthy, handsome, successful Gregory. She had the perfect life, the doctor husband, the beautiful house, the adorable daughter, and I had vague government work involving walking. It satisfied something in her, some deep need to be the victor in a competition I'd never agreed to enter. So I let her win. And there was a certain freedom in being underestimated. No pressure to perform at family gatherings. I could fade into the background and return to my actual life. The one where I commanded thousands of Marines, where I shaped military strategy, where I briefed Congress, where my decisions meant the difference between soldiers coming home or not. But this morning's text felt different. The rehearsal dinner was for Gregory's younger brother Peter. It would be both families together, the Ogdens and the Harrisons. Gregory's family was old money. Military legacy, the kind who had buildings named after them at West Point. And Tanya had just told our father to explain to these people that his daughter walked dogs. I picked up my phone and stared at the message again. Easier than explaining, right? 21 years of service. 2 Bronze Stars, a Legion of Merit. Command of me recognized by the Commandant for operational excellence. I'd led Marines in combat, made decisions that saved lives, earned the respect of the most demanding military leaders, and my sister thought it was easier to tell people I walked dogs. Something had shifted. Some calculation I'd been running for 7 years had finally completed. The rehearsal dinner was in 6 days. Gregory's family would be there, including his uncle, retired General Theodore Harrison, who'd served as a 3-star general and now sat on the board of the Naval War College. I'd never met him, but I knew his reputation. Everyone in the Marine Corps knew his reputation. I opened my email and composed a message to my executive officer. Captain Morrison, I need 3 days leave starting Thursday. Family obligation. You have operational authority in my absence. His response came in 2 minutes. Understood, Colonel. We'll hold the fort. I smiled slightly. Captain Morrison had no idea what I was planning. Neither did my family. But they would. The drive from Quantico to Greenwich, Connecticut took 6 hours. I left Thursday afternoon, my dress uniform carefully packed in the trunk. My ribbons, my medals, every piece of my professional life I'd kept hidden for 7 years. I wasn't sure if I'd wear it, wasn't sure if I'd go through with this at all. But having the option felt necessary. I arrived at the hotel in time for quiet dinner in my room. I ate methodically, reviewing the situation like any tactical scenario. Objective: reveal the truth. Opposition: 7 years of established narrative. Tanya's need for superiority. My parents' comfortable assumptions. Risk assessment. High potential for family conflict. Unknown variables regarding reactions. Expected outcome, uncertain. I laughed quietly at myself. I was running military operation analysis on my sister's rehearsal dinner. But that's who I'd become. Everything was strategy, tactical assessment, objectives, and opposition. Maybe that's why I'd let the fiction continue. It was easier to have one part of life that didn't require strategic thinking, even if that existence was based on fundamental misunderstanding. I finished dinner and went to bed early. Tomorrow would require energy. Friday evening, the Greenwich Country Club. Predictably elegant, predictably expensive, designed to impress. I dressed carefully. Simple black slacks and silk blouse. Nothing flashy. The uniform of someone who walked dogs and tried not to embarrass her successful family. My dress uniform stayed in the car. I arrived at 6:15 p.m., early enough to observe, late enough to avoid pre-dinner small talk. The dining room was spectacular. High ceilings with ornate molding. Crystal chandeliers. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the golf course, where sunset painted everything amber and gold. Round tables in a U-shape. Maybe 50 people. Both families. The wedding party. Close friends. I spotted my parents immediately. My father in his expensive Italian suit. My mother in pearls, and a French named dress. They were talking to an older couple, probably Gregory's parents. They all had that look, the subtle markers of generational wealth. Good posture, confident smiles, the ease of people who'd never worried about money. Tanya was near the bar with Gregory, laughing. Radiant in a designer dress, her hair perfect, her makeup flawless. She looked like someone who'd won at life, and maybe she had. By her definition, anyway. I took a seat at a back table, positioned where I could see everyone but remain invisible. Old intelligence briefing habits: always know the exits. Maintain situational awareness. Clarissa. My mother hurried over, my father following. You made it. We were worried about traffic. It was fine. I stood to hug her. You look lovely, dear. She studied my outfit with barely concealed concern. Is that what you're wearing? I thought perhaps she caught herself. Never mind. You look fine. Translation: she'd hoped I'd wear something more impressive, something that wouldn't embarrass them in front of the Harrisons. My father kissed my cheek. Good to see you, Clarissa. How's the walking business? He said it with gentle mockery. The way you joke about a teenager's summer job, keeping me busy, I said evenly. Tanya appeared. Gregory in tow. You came. She hugged me. I'm so glad. Come meet Gregory's family. They're wonderful. She led me around the room, her hand on my arm, steering me from group to group. Each introduction followed the same pattern. This is my sister Clarissa. She works for the government in D.C. Very mysterious. Then she'd laugh, and everyone would smile politely and move on. No follow-up question, just obligatory acknowledgement of the less successful sister. I played my role perfectly, nodded, smiled, made forgettable small talk. The invisible sister. The underachieving one. Then Tanya introduced me to Gregory's uncle, Uncle Teddy. This is Clarissa, Tanya's sister. General Theodore Harrison was early 70s, but age had refined him rather than diminished him. Still powerfully built, with silver hair and ramrod posture, the kind of bearing that announced military service from across the room. He shook my hand firmly, his grip strong, his eyes sharp and assessing. A pleasure, he said. His voice had that particular quality of command, not loud, but absolutely clear. Are you in D.C.? Yes, sir. What brings you there? I felt Tanya tense. This was always the awkward moment. Government work, nothing exciting. Clarissa's very humble. Tanya cut in quickly, anxious. She mostly walks around the city, very bureaucratic. Not like your exciting military career, Uncle Teddy? She steered the conversation away. Tell her about when you served in Okinawa. The general's eyes lingered on me longer than necessary. Something sharp and assessing in his gaze, like he was reading a classified file. Then he smiled and began telling a story about Japan. I excused myself after a few minutes and returned to my seat. Dinner was called. People found their tables. I was seated at the back with Gregory's cousins and their spouses, pleasant people who seemed relieved when I gave brief answers. No one wanted to spend the evening talking to the dog-walking sister. The meal was excellent. Prime rib cooked to perfection, asparagus with hollandaise, roasted potatoes with rosemary. Wine flowed freely, expensive French bottles. Conversation hummed comfortably. People laughing, relaxed, happy. A celebration, a family joining, a future beginning. I ate quietly, watching, waiting. After dessert, some elaborate chocolate creation with gold leaf. Gregory's father stood with his wine glass. Richard Harrison, another successful surgeon. Following the family tradition of achievement, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, he began. Tomorrow, my son Peter will marry the lovely Amanda, and we couldn't be happier. Applause. Smiles. Amanda blushed prettily. But tonight, I want to take a moment to recognize the success of both families. We are surrounded by remarkable people who have achieved remarkable things. He began working around the room, calling out achievements. Peter's best man, who just made partner at his law firm. Amanda's sister, finishing her residency in cardiology. Gregory's cousin, who'd started a successful tech company, featured in Forbes. Each acknowledgement met with applause and cheers. Everyone in high spirits, enjoying the celebration of accomplishment. Then his gaze landed on our table. My parents, Tanya, Gregory. The Ogden family has been a wonderful addition to our lives. Gregory's father-in-law, Robert, has built an impressive real estate empire, 32 commercial properties across 3 states. My father nodded modestly, pleased. His mother-in-law, Patricia, volunteers with 3 charitable organizations and sits on the museum board. My mother smiled, gracious, and of course, Tanya herself, top sales representative at her pharmaceutical company for 3 consecutive years, $250,000 sales each year. Tanya glowed. This was her moment, her validation. You've all achieved so much, Richard concluded, raising his glass. Then his eyes found me at the back table. A pause, a moment of hesitation. And Clarissa. He was clearly searching for something to say about the dog-walking daughter. Something kind. Something not awkward. Before he could continue, my father cut in. His voice was loud, loud enough to carry across the entire room. Loud enough that 50 people turned to look. She doesn't do much. He laughed, a hearty, dismissive sound that echoed off the high ceilings. Just walks dogs in the park. Several times a day, the room erupted in polite laughter. Not cruel, not harsh, just the amused chuckle reserved for someone's harmless, slightly pathetic career choice. The sympathetic laughter for life's underachievers. I watched my mother's face, saw the way she stared down at her napkin. Shoulders hunched, face flushing. She couldn't even look at me. Couldn't bear to see the pity as they laughed at her failure of a daughter. I watched Tanya. She was smiling, openly, victoriously smiling. This was what she'd wanted. Public confirmation that I was the lesser sister. The disappointment, 7 years of careful positioning, had led to this moment, this perfect proof that she'd won. The laughter was fading. Richard Harrison was trying to recur, to say something kind about different paths. And then General Theodore Harrison, seated 3 tables away, set down his wine glass. The sound of crystal meeting wood was surprisingly loud in the settling quiet. He stood up slowly. His chair scraped against the floor, a harsh sound that cut through the remaining chuckles. Every eye in the room turned to him. The general commanded attention without effort. Decades of military bearing made it impossible not to watch him. He looked directly at me across the room. His face was serious, respectful, and there was something in his eyes that might have been approval. "Colonel," he said clearly, his voice carrying to every corner. The silence that followed was absolute. Complete, total. 50 people holding their breath. "The commandant mentioned your promotion. Congratulations." I stood slowly, conscious of 50 pairs of eyes locked on me. My hands were steady, my voice calm. 21 years of service had taught me composure under pressure. "Thank you, sir. I appreciate that." Promotion. General Harrison continued, holding my gaze. "Brigade command, if I heard correctly. Quite an honor. How long have you been at Quantico?" 18 months, sir. I have an MU about 2,000 Marines. 2,000. He nodded approvingly. "And before that? Staff position at the Pentagon, sir." "Strategic planning." "Of course." His smile was slight, knowing. "Those walks around the Pentagon building. I did the same during my time there. Helps clear the head between classified briefings." The pieces were clicking into place for everyone. Could feel it, the collective realization rippling outward like shockwaves. Confusion transforming into comprehension, amusement curdling into shock. My father's wine glass had stopped halfway to his mouth, frozen in midair. My mother's hand had gone to her throat, fingers gripping her pearl necklace like a lifeline. Tanya's face had drained of all color, her victorious smile vanishing like it had never existed. "Colonel?" My father's voice came out strangled. What? Clarissa, what is he talking about? I turned to face my family's table, looked at my father directly. I'm a colonel in the United States Marine Corps, Dad. My voice was steady, clear, professional. First Command, Marine Expeditionary Unit 11. Out of Quantico. The silence was deafening. Those walks you've been joking about for 7 years? Those were me running the Pentagon perimeter when I was on staff. And now they're me conducting base inspections and observing training exercises. I could see my mother's hand shaking. The several times a day part is because I'm usually up by 4:30 a.m. for physical training with my Marines, then again at noon for command briefings. Then evening operations review. But you said, my mother's voice cracked. I said I took walks. I said I did administrative work. I said it was government work. My voice remained calm, factual. All of that was true. You decided what it meant? I never corrected you. 7 years, my father whispered. A colonel for 2 years. Before that, lieutenant colonel. Before that, major. I've been an officer for 21 years. I graduated from the Naval Academy. I've served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. I've been awarded 2 Bronze Stars and a Legion of Merit. General Harrison was still standing, watching this unfold. I should mention, he said, his voice cutting through the shocked silence like a blade, that I spoke with Commandant Williams last week. Your name came up, Colonel Ogden. Every eye was now fixed on either me or the general. The energy had shifted completely. He's considering you for his next aide-de-camp position. That's typically a stepping stone to general officer ranks. He paused for effect. He speaks very highly of your work. Tanya's wine glass slipped from her fingers. It hit the table edge and shattered. Red wine exploded across the white tablecloth, like arterial spray, dark and spreading and impossible to ignore. The sound of breaking crystal seemed impossibly loud. Sharp? Final? She jerked back, staring at the spreading stain like it was blood. Her hands were shaking. Her perfect composure, 7 years in the making, completely shattered along with the glass. Tanya. Gregory reached for her, but she pulled away, still staring at the wine. Richard Harrison looked between me and the chaos at our family table, trying to understand what had just happened, how his pleasant rehearsal dinner had transformed into this moment of brutal revelation. Colonel Ogden, I had no idea. Please forgive my nothing to forgive, sir, I said quietly. I prefer to keep my professional life private. I apologize for the disruption to your celebration. No disruption at all, General Harrison said, sitting back down. But his eyes remained on me, appraising, calculating. In fact, Colonel, I'd be interested to hear about your current command. Perhaps we could speak after dinner? I'd be honored, sir. The room was still silent. 50 people who'd been laughing at the dog-walking daughter 30 seconds ago were now staring at a Marine colonel. The cognitive dissonance was visible on every face. My mother had tears streaming down her face, her napkin pressed to her mouth. My father looked like he'd been struck. His face gray, his hands trembling as he set down his wine glass. And Tanya. Tanya was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger. Not resentment. Something closer to devastation. The complete collapse of 7 years of careful, constructed superiority. The sudden, horrifying realization that the competition she'd been winning was against an opponent who'd never been competing at all. Aftermath, I walked slowly to their table. My heels clicked on the hardwood floor, each step deliberate, measured, echoing in the awful silence. When I reached them, I placed my hand gently on my mother's shoulder. Mom, it's okay. She looked up at me, mascara running in dark streaks. Why didn't you tell us? I tried. At the beginning, I kept my voice soft. You didn't listen. And after a while, it seemed easier not to try. But all those jokes, all those times her voice broke. You thought you were being supportive. You thought I needed protecting from my own bad choices. It came from love. even if it came out as pity. My father couldn't speak, just kept shaking his head, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I turned to Tanya. She was still staring at the wine stain, her whole body rigid, frozen. "Tanya," I said softly. She looked up at me. Her eyes were dry but haunted. "You needed to be the successful one. I understand. I've always understood. So I let you have it. I let you be impressive while I faded into the background. It was easier than competing." "I didn't," she swallowed hard. "I didn't know." "I know you didn't." I squeezed her shoulder briefly. Felt her flinch under my touch. "Congratulations on your sales achievements. They're genuinely impressive. You should be proud." I stepped back, addressing the whole table. "I should go. This is Peter and Amanda's celebration. I've already disrupted it enough. You're not leaving." General Harrison's voice came from across the room. Firm. Commanding. "Sit down, Colonel. Have some dessert." "That's an order from a superior officer." His eyes twinkled slightly, even a retired one. A few people laughed, nervous, uncertain. The tension broke slightly, like ice beginning to crack. I hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir." I returned to my seat at the back table. Gregory's cousins were staring at me with new expressions. Respect, curiosity, wariness. Conversation slowly resumed, but it was different now. Quieter, more careful. People kept glancing at me, whispering. After dinner, General Harrison did indeed pull me aside. We talked for 20 minutes in a quiet corner of the club's library about command philosophy, current operations, the challenges of modern military leadership. It was a good conversation, the kind I never had with my family. He was sharp, insightful, genuinely interested. "Your family doesn't know you at all," he observed at one point. "No, sir. They don't. That was deliberate on your part." "Yes, sir." He studied me. "Why tell them now?" I considered the question carefully. "Because I'm tired of being invisible, and because my sister needed to know that her competition was over. One way or another." He nodded slowly. "That text message this morning? That's what did it?" I looked at him sharply. "How did you?" "Because I know that look, Colonel. I've seen it on 100 officers' faces over the years. The moment when you decide you're done being underestimated." He smiled. "For what it's worth, I think you made the right call. Family can heal. Resentment just festers." "I hope you're right, sir. I'm always right." He said it with such deadpan certainty that I couldn't help but smile. "Now, about that aide-de-camp position." His expression turned serious. "The commandant isn't going to offer it to someone who hides from her own family. He needs officers who are comfortable with who they are, regardless of the audience. Think about that." "Yes, sir, I will." I left the country club at 9:30 p.m. Walked out to my car alone. The cool Connecticut night air cleared my head, sharp and clean, after the stifling atmosphere inside. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Please come to breakfast tomorrow. We need to talk." "Please." Another from my father. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what else to say." Nothing from Tanya. I didn't respond. Not yet. Let them sit with it tonight. Let them process what they'd learned. Tomorrow would be soon enough. I drove back to my hotel, changed into running clothes, and went for a long run through empty Greenwich Street, 5 miles at a hard pace, pushing until my lungs burned and my legs ached. The physical pain was cleansing, familiar, manageable, unlike the emotional complexity of the evening. When I got back to my room, I showered and sat on the bed, staring at my dress uniform hanging in the closet. 21 years of service. 2,000 Marines under my command. The respect of general officers. The consideration of the commandant himself. And all it took was one retired general, one rehearsal dinner, and 7 years of carefully maintained fiction to make my family finally see me. I picked up my phone and typed a response to my mother. Breakfast at 8. I'll be there. Then I turned off the light and went to sleep. Morning after the next morning, I met my parents at a small cafe near their hotel. One of those deliberately quaint places with exposed brick and artisanal coffee. Tanya wasn't there. She's not feeling well, my mother said. Code for she can't face you. The conversation was painful, awkward, necessary. They apologized profusely, repeatedly. My mother cried. My father couldn't meet my eyes. They asked questions about my career, my life, my deployments. I answered what I could, keeping classified details vague. Why didn't you insist? My father asked. Why didn't you force us to listen? Because I was tired, Dad. And because watching Tanya need to be better than me became its own form of protection. As long as she thought she'd won, she left me alone. Let me do my job without family drama. That's not healthy, my mother said softly. No, I agreed. It's not. But it worked. Until it didn't. They wanted to attend the wedding. To see me. To somehow make up for 7 years in one afternoon. I declined gently. This is Peter and Amanda's day. My presence would only create more drama. They don't deserve that. My mother reached across the table and took my hand. When can we see you again? Really see you? I don't know, Mom. I need some time. You need some time. We all need to figure out what this looks like now. But you'll come back? Her grip tightened. You won't just disappear? I looked at her, really looked at her. She'd aged since I'd seen her last. More lines around her eyes. More gray in her hair. She looked smaller somehow. Diminished. I won't disappear, I promised. But it can't be like it was. No, my father said quietly. It can't. We finished breakfast in relative silence. Made awkward small talk about weather, about the hotel, about anything except the elephant at our table. When we stood to leave, my father pulled me into a hug. Stiff, uncertain, but genuine. I'm proud of you, Clarissa, he whispered. I should have said that a long time ago. My throat tightened. Thank you, Dad. I drove back to Quantico that afternoon. The highway stretched out before me, miles of asphalt and white lines and the ordinary landscape of Virginia. Trees, strip malls, gas stations. The mundane geography of normal lives. But my mind was elsewhere. I kept replaying the moment, the sound of Tanya's wine glass shattering. The look on my father's face. My mother's tears. General Harrison's knowing smile. The weight of 7 years of fiction collapsing in 5 minutes of truth. Had I done the right thing? I didn't know. Wouldn't know for months, maybe years. Family dynamics don't resolve themselves on convenient timelines, but I felt lighter, somehow. Like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't realize was there until I set it down. I arrived at my office Sunday evening to prep for Monday's operations meeting. The weekend duty officer looked surprised. Colonel, didn't expect you back until tomorrow. Family obligation ended early. Everything okay? It will be. I settled into my desk, reviewing reports and briefings. The familiar rhythm of command. This was my world, not wine glasses and country clubs and rehearsal dinners. This was where I belonged, where I was seen clearly, without fiction or assumptions or desperate competitions. Captain Morrison found me there at 7 p.m., reviewing deployment schedules. Welcome back, Colonel. How was the family obligation? I looked up at him. Young, earnest, dedicated, one of my best officers, enlightening, Captain. Everything okay? It will be. I smiled slightly. One way or another, it will be. He nodded and left me to my work, but paused at the door. Colonel? Yes? Whatever happened, you seem different. Lighter, maybe. I considered that. Maybe I am, Captain. After he left, I turned back to my reports. Supply chain logistics, training schedules, personnel evaluations. The endless paperwork of command. My phone buzzed. A text from Tanya. Just 2 words, I'm sorry. No explanation. No excuses. No justifications. Just, I'm sorry. I stared at the message for a long time. Thought about 7 years of competition I'd never agreed to. 7 years of being diminished so she could feel superior. 7 years of letting her win because it was easier than fighting. But also, 7 years of my own choices. My own decisions to stay silent. My own complicity in the fiction. We were both responsible. Both guilty. Both victims of our own needs and fears. I typed back slowly, I know. It's okay. We'll talk soon. I meant it. We would talk, eventually, work through the complicated mess of sisterhood and jealousy and years of misunderstanding. But not today. Monday morning arrived with the precision of military routine. 430. Physical training. 5 miles with Alpha Company. My legs burned, my lungs burned, but it felt good. Cleansing. Real. 600. Shower, dress, coffee. 0700. Morning briefing with my command staff. Intelligence updates, logistics reports, personnel issues. Captain Morrison presented the weekend summary. Quiet weekend, Colonel. No incidents. Training exercises proceeded as scheduled. Oh, and you received a call from the Commandant's office. I looked up sharply. When? Friday afternoon. They asked when you'd be back. I told them Monday morning. Did they say what it was regarding? No, ma'am. Just asked you to call when you returned. The room went silent. Everyone knew what a call from the Commandant's office might mean. I kept my expression neutral. Thank you, Captain. I'll follow up after this meeting. We continued with the briefing, but I could feel the energy shift. Curiosity, speculation, hope that their commanding officer was being recognized. After the meeting ended, I returned to my office and stared at the phone for a full minute. General Harrison's words echoed in my mind. He's considering you for his next aide-de-camp position. I picked up the phone and dialed. Commandant's office, Sergeant Major Reynolds speaking. This is Colonel Ogden, Marine Expeditionary Unit Elan. I received a message to call. 1 moment, Colonel. 30 seconds of silence. Then a new voice, older. Authority that needed no announcement. Colonel Ogden, General Williams. I stood automatically, even though he couldn't see me. Good morning, sir. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. Not at all, sir. I'm at your disposal. Good. I could hear papers shuffling. I'll be direct, Colonel. I need an aide-de-camp, someone with combat experience, strategic thinking, and the ability to interface with civilian leadership. Your name keeps coming up. My heart was pounding, but my voice remained steady. I'm honored, sir. Theodore Harrison spoke highly of you. Said he met you this weekend at a family event. Yes, sir. My sister's future brother-in-law's rehearsal dinner. He said it was illuminating. There was a hint of amusement in his voice. He also said you've been hiding your light under a bushel for some time. I chose my words carefully. I prefer to let my work speak for itself, sir. And it does. Your efficiency reports are excellent. Your Marines respect you. Your operations are clean and effective. But this position requires more than competence, Colonel. It requires presence. The ability to represent the Marine Corps at the highest levels. To be seen. I understood what he was asking. I understand, sir. Do you? He paused, because Theodore mentioned that your own family didn't know what you did for a living. That concerns me. I closed my eyes. Of course, the general had told him. Of course, this had reached the commandant. With respect, sir, my family situation was complicated. But as of this weekend, it's been resolved. Resolved how? They know now, sir. Everything, and we're working through it. There was a long silence. Colonel Ogden, I need officers who are comfortable in their own skin, who don't hide who they are. Can you be that officer? I thought about Friday night. The sound of breaking glass. My father's shock. Tanya's devastation. The weight of 7 years falling away. Yes, sir, I can. Good. His voice warmed slightly. Then let's talk. I'd like you to come to headquarters next week, Tuesday. As 400 hours. We'll discuss the position in detail. Yes, sir. I'll be there. And Colonel? Sir, bring your dress uniform. You might need it. The line went dead. I sat down slowly, staring at the phone. A meeting with the Commandant. A potential aide-de-camp position. A stepping stone to general officer ranks. Everything I'd worked for. Everything I'd earned. And it was happening now because I'd finally stopped hiding. Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang at 2:47 p.m. Tuesday afternoon. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Colonel Ogden. Clarissa. Tanya's voice was small, uncertain. Is this a bad time? I set down the personnel file I'd been reviewing. No? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. She paused. I wanted to talk. Really talk. If you're willing. I looked out my office window. Marines were assembling for afternoon formation. Orderly, precise, predictable. My family was none of those things. I'm willing, I said quietly. I don't know where to start. The beginning is usually good. She laughed, a broken, painful sound. The beginning was me being jealous of you when we were 8 years old. You want to go back that far? If that's where it started. Another long pause. You were always so certain. Even as a kid. You knew what you wanted. You went after it. You didn't care what anyone thought. That's not true. I cared very much what people thought. But you didn't let it stop you. Her voice cracked. I let it control everything. Every decision. Every choice. I needed people to think I was successful, impressive, better than everyone else, especially better than you. Why especially me? Because you were my sister. Because you were supposed to be the person I could beat. The one person I could definitively be better than. She was crying now, and for 7 years, I thought I had. I thought I'd won. There was no competition, Tanya. I know that now. That's what makes it so much worse. You weren't even playing, were you? I thought about that. No, I wasn't. You let me diminish you. For 7 years. Why? Because it was easier than fighting. Because I was tired. Because I had a job that demanded everything I had, and I couldn't give energy to family drama too. So you just let me win. I let you think you'd won. There's a difference. More crying. Then, softly, I'm not a good person, Clarissa. You're not a bad person either. You're just human. Flawed. Like all of us. Mom and Dad are devastated. I know. They keep talking about all the things they missed, all the times they dismissed you, all the jokes they made. She took a shaky breath. Dad can't stop apologizing. Mom cries every time someone mentions it. They'll process it in their own time. Will you forgive them? I considered the question carefully. Yes. Eventually. But forgiveness doesn't mean everything goes back to how it was. No, she agreed. It can't. We sat in silence for a moment. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. What happens now? She asked finally. I don't know. We figure it out as we go. Will you come home? For Thanksgiving, maybe? Thanksgiving was 5 months away. An eternity. A heartbeat. Maybe, I said. Let's take it one step at a time. Okay, her voice was small but steadier. One step at a time. Tanya. Yeah. Thank you for calling. Thank you for answering. After we hung up, I sat at my desk for a long time, thinking about sister and competition and the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. 6 months later, I stood in the Commandant's office wearing my dress uniform. Full regalia. Every ribbon, every medal. 21 years of service displayed across my chest. General Williams was behind his desk, flanked by 2 other general officers I recognized but had never met personally. Colonel Ogden, he said formally. It is my distinct honor to inform you that the President of the United States has nominated you for promotion to Brigadier General. The words hung in the air like smoke. Brigadier General. 1 star, the culmination of everything I'd worked for. Pending Senate confirmation, of course, he continued with a slight smile. But that's merely a formality. Your record speaks for itself. Thank you, sir. My voice was steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. I'm honored. You've earned it, General. He used my future rank deliberately. Your work as my aide-de-camp these past 4 months has been exemplary. You represent the very best of the Marine Corps. One of the other generals stepped forward. Your family will be invited to the promotion ceremony. I assume they'll attend? I thought about Thanksgiving dinner 3 weeks ago. The first time I'd gone home since the rehearsal dinner. It had been awkward, careful, full unspoken apologies and tentative new boundaries. But Tanya had been there, had looked me in the eye, had introduced me to Emma as Aunt Clarissa, who's a colonel in the Marine Corps. Had said it with pride instead of competition. My mother had cried happy tears this time. My father had asked intelligent questions about my work, really listening to the answers. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't magically healed. But it was better. Yes, sir, I said. They'll be there. The promotion ceremony took place on a crisp December morning at Marine Corps Base Quantico. The parade ground was perfect. Marines in dress uniform, flags snapping in the wind, the sun breaking through clouds like a spotlight from heaven. My family sat in the front row. My parents, older and somehow smaller than I, remembered. My father in a suit, my mother in her pearls. Both sitting up straight, proud. Tanya was there with Gregory and Emma. She'd flown in from Boston the night before. Had texted me. I wouldn't miss this for the world. General Williams stood at the podium, delivering the official promotion orders. Having demonstrated exceptional leadership, strategic vision, and unwavering dedication to the United States Marine Corps, my sponsor, General Harrison, who'd agreed to perform the ceremony, stepped forward with a small velvet box containing my 1-star insignia. Colonel Clarissa Ogden, he said, his voice carrying across the parade ground. It is my privilege to promote you to the rank of Brigadier General. He removed my colonel's eagles from my uniform and replaced them with a single silver star. My parents were invited forward to pin the star on my other shoulder. My mother's hands were shaking. My father's eyes were wet. We're so proud of you, he whispered as he secured the pin. So very proud. My mother couldn't speak, just pulled me into a fierce hug, not caring about protocol or dignity, or the hundreds of people watching. When she finally let go, I turned to face the assembled Marines. 2,000 faces looking back at me. My Marines, the ones I'd led, trained, fought alongside. They saluted as one, a forest of hands rising in perfect synchronization. I returned the salute, my hand steady, my heart full. 3 years later, I'm writing this from my office at the Pentagon. Major General Clarissa Ogden now. 2 stars. Deputy Director of Strategic Planning. My family knows what I do. All of it as much as classification allows. Tanya and I talk every week. Really talk about life and work and motherhood and career and all the complicated truths we couldn't say for so many years. She's doing well, still in pharmaceutical sales. Still competitive, but in healthier ways now. She runs half marathons and competes with herself instead of with me. My parents come to visit twice a year. My father asks detailed questions about military strategy. My mother volunteers at the USO. They brag about me now. To everyone. Sometimes too much. I have to gently remind them that not everyone wants to hear about troop movements over dinner. But it's genuine. They see me now. Really see me. And I let them, because hiding was easier, but being seen, truly seen, is better. Last week, I got a letter from a young female Marine, fresh out of basic training. She'd heard about my story, somehow the colonel who let her family think she walked dogs. She wrote, "Thank you for showing me that it's okay to be underestimated. But also that eventually you have to stand up and be counted." I keep that letter in my desk drawer. Because she's right. Being underestimated can be armor. It can be protection. It can be strategy. But it can't be forever. Eventually, you have to stand in the light and let people see who you really are, even if it shatters their comfortable illusions. Even if it breaks crystal wine glasses and disrupts rehearsal dinners. Even if it means 7 years of careful fiction collapsing in 5 minutes of truth. Because the alternative, hiding, diminishing yourself, letting others write your story, that's not armor, that's a prison. And I didn't spend 24 years serving my country just to imprison myself. The dog-walking daughter walked away from that fiction 3 years ago. Major General Clarissa Ogden walked into the light. And I've never looked back. The end.